Fast track got passed through the Senate. There is still a question whether it'll pass the House. The fight is now going to the House of Representatives. And the House has a very strong progressive caucus. The progressive caucus in the House of Representatives is either the largest or the second largest caucus in Congress. Bigger than the Tea Party caucus. Bigger than, I think, pretty much any others. I'm not sure about the Black Caucus, but whatever. It's big. There's a lot of progressive Democrats in the House of Representatives, and there's a lot of quote conservative Republicans, Tea Party Republicans. Now, the reason for this, and the reason why, and I thought this was fascinating today to see this study about how members of Congress actually believe that their districts are more conservative than the districts actually are. Okay, and there's actually a reason for this, and it's TPM is writing about this, how researchers at the University of California, Berkeley, and the University of Michigan looked at the voting records of members of Congress and then looked at the actual political positions in their districts, and what they found was that basically, the average American legislator thinks that his or her district is 15 points more conservative than they are. Now, among Republicans, it's more like 20 points. Among Democrats, it's around 10 points. And I would suggest to you that the reason why is because, with the exception of maybe 30 seats in the House of Representatives out of the 435 seats in the House, with the exception of 30 plus or minus, because of years and years, decades and decades, centuries, arguably, of gerrymandering and redistricting, which are essentially the same thing, every 10 years, the Constitution requires that the congressional districts be redrawn so that every district, so that every person in the House of Representatives is representing roughly the same number of people. And they redraw these lines so that you've got these totally, okay, we'll have one district here that we know is going to be 70% Republican, and we'll have one district next to it that we know is going to be 70% Democratic. And that way, those two members of Congress, or whoever they may be, they know that if they win the primary, they don't have to worry about the general election. Now, who votes in the primaries? The extreme ideologues. People like me vote in the primaries. The people who really understand politics and who really care about politics, or at least think they understand politics. People who are concerned about who their party's nominee is going to be. And so this is why I believe that we have so many good progressives in the House of Representatives, because in those reliably Democratic districts, progressives are, in the primaries, the primary voters are putting progressives in. The Jan Schakowskis of the world, the Keith Ellisons of the world. And on the conservative side, that's why you've got so many Tea Partiers in Congress. Because if they win the primary, they don't have to worry about the general election. Unlike with the presidential race, they don't have to run to the center. We've seen this spectacle. It was, Mitt Romney writ large was the last time we saw it, where he became a crazy right-winger in order to win the primary. The presidential primary. And then once he became the candidate of the Republican Party, he had to move back to the center. And there are those who say that Hillary Clinton's doing the same thing right now with the left. She's going to the left, but once the primary is over, if she's the nominee, she'll go back to the center. And of course, center doesn't actually mean center, because the center of America, where most Americans actually stand, is actually what the media refers to as left. The corporate media refers to as left. Keep in mind, 75% of Americans want no trade deals. That's not a leftist position. When 75% of Americans don't want something, that's the American position. It's not Republican, it's not Democrat, it's not left, it's not right, it's American. So over 70% of Americans want Social Security and Medicare expanded, not contracted. These aren't left positions. These are American positions. But I digress. So I don't think it's that the lawmakers think that their districts are more conservative than they are. I think it's that the lawmakers are pandering to the primary voters. Because unlike the presidential race, where you've got to both run in the primary and then run in the general election against a genuine competitor, and in some Senate races as well, because they're statewide races. In the House races, in almost all of the House races, they don't have to run against a genuine competitor after they've won the primary. So the way to put the fear of God into a member of the House of Representatives is a little different than the Senate and certainly different than the White House, is threaten them with a primary. I will support a primary challenger to you. This is the message that the billionaires have been giving to Republicans now ever since Citizens United, since 2010. We will put up, and they do, by the way. Look at all these so-called moderate Republicans, just good old-fashioned Main Street corporate Republicans who have been thrown out of office in the last 6 years and replaced by hardcore right-wing crazy Tea Partiers because billionaires, right-wing cranks got into the primaries. So the TPP, or actually the TPA, the Fast Track Trade Promotion Authority, this fight, we just lost. America just lost this fight in the Senate because virtually every Republican, with 3 exceptions, Susan Collins, Rand Paul, and Mike Lee, if my recollection is correct, they all voted against it. But 12 Democrats sold out and voted for it. So America lost this. We're losing our sovereignty in the Senate. And the sellouts are there for everybody to see. Now, what's going to happen in the House? In the House of Representatives, these members of the House, the ones in the swing districts are particularly nervous, but that's only about 30 of them. But the ones who are in the safe seats, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, the way you put the fear of God in their hearts is by talking about the next primary. By calling up and saying, and the number for Congress is 202-225-3121, is by calling up and saying, I vote in primaries. And I'm paying attention to your vote. And if you're talking to a Republican, say, I do not want Obama trade. And I do not want this fast track authority, which ties the hands of Congress to do their constitutionally mandated job. And if you're talking to a Democrat, you say, I don't want, this shaft of this Trans-Pacific Partnership, and I don't think Congress should be giving up their right, their obligation to have open and public debate. Alan Grayson was on our TV show last night. 83 seconds is the amount of time that will be given if the Senate vote is replicated in the House. If the House passes this trade promotion authority, this fast track, and that vote's going to happen as soon as John Boehner can whip the votes. If that passes in the House, then debate will be limited to 83 seconds per member of Congress. This is, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, Abraham Lincoln, Franklin Roosevelt, Dwight Eisenhower, Richard Nixon. They're rolling over in their graves. Well, maybe not Richard Nixon, but you get my point. This is so fundamentally un-American. Gee, let's act in the best interest of the transnational corporations and the billionaires. To hell with the American working people. It's astonishing. It's truly astonishing.